Dahl, you're first.
Tonight I'm going to talk about the first medical Miranda rights that I've created. I went to the recent Constitutionalist Day celebration. It wasn't much of a celebration. The women in the act were screaming about wanting their rights too, and they were not provided their rights back in the day. And as you know, a lot of women were locked up and tortured in mental health facilities all over the country. 10 years after the Constitution was signed, the biggest, a large facility was created to lock women up. So the scenario tonight is that a certain council member got in an argument with a citizen, and the citizen was lying about the individual being elected or not, and she was obviously elected. She was not appointed. And so back in the day, if those two were married and they were getting an argument up there in front of the students, the woman would probably be put out and locked up and tortured. So over an argument like that. But even though nobody was elected back in the day. So these are the medical Miranda rights that I created in the first interactive form. First, you have the right to remain silent. Everything you say and do can be used against you. And so when that right is given, you check it off. You have the right to submit an incident report to the officer, paramedic company, fire department, medical agency, and all other entities involved in your transport to any medical facility for voluntary or involuntary commitment. You check that off. You have the right to a lawyer, court rules, and the right to an instructional manual for hearing and self-representation. Check that off. You have the right to a law enforcement incident report and incident report document viewing before court. Check that off. You have the right to view all paperwork written about you by doctors while in detainment. 6, you have the right to represent or request study materials for passing any independent living assessments before testing. And 7, you have the right to correct all doctor's notes by adding addendums attached to all medical files. Check that off. And then you have the right to a written cognition test and living assessment test of your choosing before trial. Right now, so I talked to Assistant Marshal Phillips, and she gave me a lot of information on fire safety, and which is important dealing with the mental health industry. And then and so right now, Providence is doing sewing tests. 9, you have the right to not be injected with drugs, coerced or forced, pill medication before court. And if I run out of time, I'll talk to you later. You have the right to verify, transfer any documents proving independent abilities or credentials before court with assistance by staff. And right now, they won't acknowledge anything you've done in your life. It's all a delusion.
Mr. 11. McDowell, you got through 10.
Okay. 10.
11 through 20 next week.
Okay. Well, no, I only get one form a month. So
2 weeks.
Oh, next is a new month.
Next week is a new month.
Okay.
All right.
I got to get this.
Mr. Bocook. Then we'll move to our legislative agenda, and before we start with resolutions, H2B, which is a resolution 77, we're going to do the ordinance up above on hearing 235437. We're going to do that as a first reading. So I'm looking for a motion to defer resolution 0077 for a week.
So moved.
Second.
All those in discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution 77 has been moved to next week, and we'll do H2A as a first reading. With that, we'll get to the resolutions. Resolution 0075.
Resolution 2016-75, calling for the updating of city policies to implement the anti-harassment policy recommendations contained in the Siebel Group report, deferred from September 19, 2016 agenda.
Council President, I would like to substitute this version that I put on everybody's desk for the one currently on file.
Okay, so you want to make that motion, and somebody can second it?
So I'd like to make a motion to substitute this version for the one that's currently in on base.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
6 to 1, it passes. Substitute versions in place. Now, do you want to brief it?
I will brief it, and Councilmember Mumm is also going to help me. This is a resolution that is a result of the Siebold report, which is the report that came out on the investigation. It did two things: the investigation of the departure of Chief Straub, and part of that investigation was that we requested the investigator provide some best practice recommendations for the city to update our human resources and harassment policies within the city. So in the report, if anybody has read it, she does provide a number of recommendations dealing with reporting harassment for employees. So what we did was we took those recommendations, we worked with our Human Resources Interim Director to lay these out, and in doing so requesting the administration look at these and start implementing them and reporting back to us that some of these or all of these recommendations will be put in place. In the revised version, you will note there is one section where the investigator thought a team approach to handling concerns raised by employees would be a good way to coordinate some of the complaints. And our interim Human Resources Director really felt that, as far as she was concerned, the best practice was a one-on-one between the employee and the Human Resources Director. So we deleted that section, so it won't be a team approach. It will be one person, and then they will take the complaint from there. So we took that out, and we also, the other change involves putting the Human Resources Director in charge of making sure that we get our quarterly updates and to let us know what kind of policy changes are coming down the line for these kinds of complaints that employees will make. Having said that, I'm going to hand it over to Councilmember Mumm for just a few minutes, and you can talk about it too.
This is a really important issue, and it's not just within the city of Spokane, but in private businesses as well. And when we did our gender and racial equity report earlier this year, we found among our employees, both men and women, we surveyed quite a few for a workplace climate survey, and 32% of the women surveyed say they've been harassed or bullied. That's an astronomical figure. I think a lot of us were shocked by that. And this is a very important step going forward to improve our practices and also align them with our departments. And in the Siebold investigation, it was made clear that the Spokane Police Department practices were not consistent even with our own city policy. So I'm glad that the administration is open to making these changes. And I'm just going to mention a few key things. The amendment to the city's harassment policy is supposed to include a clear explanation of what is and isn't what is allowable conduct. It's an assertion that employees who make complaints do provide the information so they can also be protected against any retaliation. Sometimes that's why people don't come forward. And it doesn't just happen to women, it can happen to men too, of course. This is an assurance that the city will protect the confidentiality of harassment complaints, and the complaint process provides a prompt, thorough, and impartial investigation. It outlines a lot of specificity that we don't currently have. It also says that employees understand that they have the obligation to report behavior under the policy if they experience or even witness the behavior. So as a coworker looking out for your other coworkers, it's important to step up and say something. It's also appropriate that city personnel undergo training. This is a key part of implementing the sexual harassment so they know how to handle these situations. And then we talk about how the Human Resources Director will be tasked with putting together the new policy. And then finally, we as a city council are asking for quarterly reports. So we know this is actually going to happen. When we made our task force report and recommendation, this was well over 6 months ago. We've had the Siebold report in hand for quite some time. I think it's important to have the timely reporting, and that we are now to the point where we're going to start to implement this very important a series of changes to our sexual harassment policy, and I want to thank Councilmember Stratton for all her work on it, and the rest of the council as well.
Thank you. We'll go to Public Stream Nato. You would like to speak? I didn't have him signed up. I didn't see that.
Council President, members of the council, Councilwoman Mum, Councilwoman Stratton, thank you for taking the time to do this. This is important. As a father with daughters, I don't agree with the previous comments because it's very important to have protection because women are harassed at a far greater number than men. And that whole, when men look at a woman and when women look at a man, my God, what BS. When men look at a woman, they're usually catcalling. They're usually making comments. They're being rude. I'm sorry, that's not attraction. That's abuse, that's harassment. And it's even worse at a job. Because the last thing you need at a job is having your boss or a coworker harass you. And we have seen recently, as evidenced by the Spokane Police Department, what happens when a female officer is raped by one of her own in a house full of police officers. And not one police officer, not one, in that whole house did the right thing. Instead, they destroyed evidence, they hid the truth, they hid behind the police guild, and they left her hanging out to dry. A police officer, someone who defends our rights on the streets, someone who decided to break the glass ceiling and join our police department, and this is how we treat them. So kudos. I urge you all to vote for this and pass this because it's important to protect our women. It's important that they face the same kind of judgments that a male faces. And that if they violate this, then they should pay the same consequences. They shouldn't be different. It should be equal and equitable. And there's a big difference. You know, I'm sure you've seen that picture out there with all the kids on the shoe boxes. You know, there's a big difference between equal and equitable. And what we want is equitable. We want it so it's straight across the board for everybody. So vote yes on this. And once again, thank you, Councilwoman Mum and Councilwoman Stratton.
Anyway, thank you guys for bringing it forward. It's a good report.
Yep.
Important to act on those. Even the report itself was pretty clear about conflicting policies within the city. Councilmember Beggs and then Councilmember Waters.
Yeah, I want to commend Councilmember Stratton for working closely with the administration on this and making it even a better product that was already good when it started. And just noting for the audience that this is a resolution for the administration to finish up the work, use their HR expertise to do it. So I thought that was a great example of council and administration working together. And secondly, I think it's a great idea to get the policies clear, and people can make their own choices about whether to make a complaint or not. The problem before was that there was one policy for the police, one for the citywide that supposedly applied to the police, and a lot of people weren't clear about it and how to do it. And so it's great, as painful it is, that brought us here, that we can shine the light on it, and that all employees can be empowered to have a safe workplace.
Councilmember Waters.
Well, I think that Councilmember Beggs said it well, that we really need to make sure that we're consistently following a set of policies and procedures, and that has not been occurring. And so I just also want to thank the two councilwomen for their work on this. And we've known, as again, from earlier this year, that we need to do better as a city, and hopefully this gives us a path forward and some guidelines that we can follow up on, and it will require that we get an update at least quarterly concerning the policy changes as a council committee. And so those are open to the public, and the public will be able to hear what those updates are. So that's important to me. So thank you very much for your work.
Ready to vote? Passes 6-1, and with that, we'll go to resolution.
Resolution 2016-78 regarding the establishment of Italian American Heritage Day in the city of Spokane.
Councilmember Waldrop.
All right. Well, we have some folks down here tonight, so I want to make sure we get to this agenda item, but let me give a little background, and then I will hear from folks that are here tonight to speak on this topic. So about a month ago, or a little over a month ago, the council heard from community members regarding establishing an Indigenous Peoples Day in the city of Spokane on the second Monday of October. And I learned a lot from citizens on all sides of that issue. And something that I heard both over email and the night that we held the hearing was that some Italian Americans who reached out to the council here in Spokane, they felt slighted, and that there was a connection to their culture, and that their heritage was not being honored or celebrated. And of course, I think all of us want all cultures to be celebrated and recognized by our city. And I have a particular, just growing up in Northeast Spokane, the Italian American heritage is really strong in that part of town, and where I was born and raised and attended school and church, and I went to school alongside families with the names like Cantabile, Amicarella, Piccolo, Green. So, you know, I reflected on this a lot because I feel like we should honor all cultures and take opportunities to do that here in Spokane. So I reached out to Ron Anselmo, the president of the local Italian American Club, Dr. John Caputo from Gonzaga, and I asked them, you know, what could we do to honor Italian American history here in Spokane? Because I think there's some really amazing stories to be told about how folks came to this region, where they settled, the businesses that grew out of that community, that really made Spokane what it is today. So we got some folks together and we sat down across the table and we listened to each other, and Ron and those who joined that day, while Columbus Day continues to be a federal holiday, Ron and others suggested that we might consider October 1st in the city of Spokane as an appropriate day to honor Italian American heritage for several reasons, which I think we'll hear about from folks tonight. But that's a particularly important day, and it's coming up this weekend, and there's some exciting things happening. So I wanted to thank everybody for taking the time to sit down with me and to share your stories with me, and for sending the text that I included in the resolution tonight to be considered. And I look forward to hearing from those who came down tonight to share their stories.
With that, we'll go to public testimony. Mr. Giramonte.
Evening, everybody. 1956, Alex and Mamie Giramonte adopted a child by the name Umberto Masacci, and later his name changed to John Giramonte, standing here before you. I'm happy that we got together with Ms. Waldorf for this Italian Heritage on October 1st, being that it's our 50th anniversary of our American Italian Club here in Spokane, and also our Grand Lodge meeting, and our Sister City project that we're going to be having a signing. So I'm real happy that this will be a special day for us and for everybody else. Thank you very much.
Mr. Yamada.
You know, this just feels like it's sort of a knee-jerk reaction to the recognition of not recognizing Columbus Day and making it Indigenous Peoples Day. The horrors that Columbus brought to this land are very evident. They were hidden for many years until real history history spoken by the people who were affected by Columbus's landing. The people who were here. It wasn't a new world. It already existed. So what I see here is a situation where, okay, let's do this. Then I would like you to declare January 1st Cuban Revolution Day, for the day that Fidel Castro marched into Havana, Cuba, and won the revolution. I would like you to recognize Karl Marx's birthday as Marxism Day in Spokane, Washington. Or why not, let's recognize Socialist Day, or Communist Day, or a myriad of other days. I think the action that was taken to change the name of Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day here in this city was appropriate, as it should be by the federal government. But as we can see by what's going on in North Dakota, the federal government still doesn't respect the Native people, because we relented them to little plots of land that were worthless, but apparently now they're worth something to the white man again. So we're abusing them and taking their land and taking it for granted. So I think it was well-deserved that they got Indigenous Peoples Day. I have nothing against Italians. When I landed in this country, I came over here because the Catholic Church brought my family over here from Cuba. And I landed in Hoboken, New Jersey, and went to St. Francis School. And me and my brother were the only two Cubans in a school full of Italians. And I had many, many Italian friends. But this doesn't work. This doesn't honor anybody. And I think a lot of our Native American friends are going to be slighted and are going to feel that it's a knee-jerk reaction to Indigenous Day. Thank you.
George McGrath?
Council President, Council Members, George McGrath. Another proof of the well-thought-out plans of the Spokane City Council. What a can of worms. Had you decided to have an Indigenous Peoples Day, why not make a day for them instead of taking it away from the Italian population, having it as Columbus Day? Columbus Day has been in existence for, what, 70-some years. October 1st should be, or the first Monday of October, whichever way you're going to do this, should be, I would think, as appropriate for Indigenous Peoples Day as Columbus Day is, the second Monday of October. Like I say, planning here, great. After the horse is out of the barn, then we start closing doors. Now, as far as the idea of all of the bad things that Columbus did, I don't believe that there's any true history that shows that Columbus ever made it to this country. None of his ships made it to what is now the United States of America. But oh boy, are we blaming him for everything that was there. The indigenous people had their own lifestyle. It was a lifestyle which was very much nomadic in most cases. In this part of the country, it seemed as though the indigenous people, the American Indians, followed the food, either the buffalo herds or the fish. And that was their method of survival. During their treks back and forth across the country, they fought with every other tribe that was out there. They stole women, they stole children, they killed other warriors, they stole horses. This was their way of life. But now we're saying, oh no, 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 no. We're going to rewrite history, people. Yes, we are. And Spokane will be the leader of that, or at least one of the leaders of that. So I think that this is about as stupid an idea as anything you've done. Why not put an amendment in and use this day that you're talking about now as Indigenous Peoples' Day and leave Columbus Day alone.
Sherry Barnett?
Council President and members of the City Council, I'm sorry, but every human being born is going to have faults. All of our streets that are named after great and famous people, and you're going to be, if you look into their life, and the best of you here, you're going to find you have faults, and I certainly have them. We cannot make sainthood on our streets by our names. Columbus did not come to the United States. He was in the islands to the side. But nevertheless, I'm not against this Columbus Day. I'm glad you're going to honor the Italian Americans if you do. But I just want to let you know that there was only one perfect person, and it's not a human. Thank you.
And Christine Schuler.
Council, my name is Christine Schuler from Spokane. This is like not surprising, you know, when you don't have to throw away one friend to get it to make a new one, and that's just like exactly what you guys did, and you took the chair away. I'm glad that the indigenous peoples have their own day, but I wish they didn't get a used day that was used up by their enemy. And so now you've rearranged everybody's lives, and I think I would like to make a resolution that, you know, I'm learning from the council. I know I don't have the authority to make resolutions, but I'm going to give it a shot. Let's make a resolution that says the council cannot rearrange holidays, because the people are the ones that are celebrating the holidays. There's people that maybe Columbus Day might not be my favorite holiday or your favorite holiday, Mr. Ben Stuckert, but it's lots of people's favorite holiday, and it's like you're rearranging people's lives that you don't have authority to do. So I think that there should be a resolution that says if there's going to be changing up of the holidays, that it should be put up to a vote of the people, because the people who are out here in the city that are celebrating that didn't get to choose. They're the ones. There could be people that have it's their favorite holiday, and they have plans all year long with hotel reservations and everything all set to go, and now it's all of a sudden changed and they didn't get any warning whatsoever. So let's have a resolution that says next time you ever try and change holidays, that it's up to a vote of the people, okay? Let the people decide. You asked a lot of the indigenous people, the tribes, you said you went and asked all of them, but you didn't ask anybody else. That's not a fair vote at all. It should be fair.
Dr. Caputo.
Thank you, and I'm pleased to speak to you tonight about a more pleasant topic than a couple weeks back when I was here. I'd like to say that my family came to the United States around 1909. I think my wife's family, the Gianettas, came to the United States about the same time. They came to the United States for opportunity, and it didn't come easy. You might be, I told you last time about the lynchings in New Orleans. At the same time that Italians were being put in camps in Montana because they're seen as enemy aliens, my own family I had four uncles in the Navy sent to the Pacific. 3 of them lost at sea at the same day. Luckily, none of them perished, and they were found later. But Italian Americans have always been loyal Americans, committed to this country. We bring art, we bring architecture, we bring food, we bring family. Those are core values of what it means to be an American and what it means to be an Italian American especially. With that process, we've gone, and I've taken students to a small classical, historical 13th century village up in the Apennine Mountains called Cagli, Italy. The Sister City Club, the American Italian Club of Spokane have been sponsors of this new sister city that officially we will be signing papers on Saturday here at the Doubletree, and all of you have been invited to come for that. But it's really sort of an honoring of culture, education, art, all the things that Italy has brought to this country and is perpetuated in the schools, the hospitals, and the university here in Spokane all came from that same Italian humanism, the birth of humanism, the birth of freedom, the birth of enlightenment that Italians have brought to the United States. With that in mind, I want to invite you, if at all possible, to come to the Sister City signing ceremony and learn about this city that's classically like Spokane. It's near nature, it's near perfect, it's up in the Apennine Mountains, it's 30 minutes from the Adriatic seacoast, lemons, goats, fish, hunting, fishing, bicycling, outdoor activity is why people go there. The mayor and the vice mayor of Cayey will be here this weekend, and we're going to have a big party. And you're all invited to the big party at the Doubletree Hotel to help celebrate this and recognize just what Italians and Italian Americans have done for Spokane. And we've all gained from being part of this country, and you'll see it every day. We're hardworking people, and all the people who support the club have come from that stock. I said last time I was here, the Italians are really tribal people. We come from which campanile, which bell tower, which church are you from? And the name of our town stays with us for life. Thank you.
Mr. Anselmo?
Well, I wasn't going to read this, but I think I will. I just want to let you know that during World War II, the U.S. government declared 600,000 Italians in the United States enemy aliens and violated their civil rights. These policies subjected Italian Americans to mandatory ID cards and fingerprinting, curfew and travel restrictions, confiscation of cameras, telescopes, shortwave radios, 3,300 arrests and internments, 10,000 forced evacuations, random searches of homes and persons without warrants, loss of homes, jobs, and businesses. And with that, I'd like to say that my dad came from the old country, came from Italy, came here when he was 12 years old, and he actually went to Canada first, and he worked in the mines in Canada, and then he came to Spokane. My mother was born right here in Spokane. She's full-blooded Italian, and her parents came from Italy. My brother and I were born and raised right here in Spokane and went to grade school at St. Aloysius and high school at Gonzaga and North Central. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll move to any council commentary. Councilmember Stratton?
This will be short and sweet. I want to thank Councilmember Waldrop for putting this all together. And I guess I feel a little differently in that I think that we should really take time to recognize all cultures. In fact, I was thinking, listening to some of the stories, how wonderful it would be if every month we focused on a different culture that is right here in Spokane and spent the time to get to know people's histories, because it's so important. So I'm going to support this, and I think we should celebrate each other and celebrate where we came from. And so anybody else wants to come down and have more days dedicated to different cultures, I'm in. I mean, I think it's so much better that we can sit in a room and talk about this rather than letting things divide us. But I do have a very important question to anybody in the audience that can answer this. I wrote down, as you were talking, I wrote down Stromboli. So my question is, when I was growing up at St. Francis Xavier in Spokane, I was told that the Stromboli was actually created here in Spokane. Is that true? Yes. And was it the Martiri family? Was it the restaurant down on Hamilton? Okay. Okay. So that is it. This is the home of the Stromboli. Okay, let's celebrate that. Thank you.
That didn't make it in the resolution.
Mr. Beggs?
I'm going to be supporting it, and I really want to call out and support all the folks that have come down to support it. I met John out after a few weeks ago. We had a long talk out on the plaza, and I'm really grateful that he's at the table and he's here. And I know in our country, a lot of people have stories, and their people have come and they've gone through hardship, and the people who are already here have gone through great hardship. And sometimes we get into a thing of out hardshipping each other, and yet there are moments when we can come together and celebrate. And I agree, Council Stratton, that's what we should be focusing on. Some days in the council chambers, people bring their pain and their anger, and that's their right to do. But other people bring their togetherness and unity and a vision. And so I'd say the bulk of the people here brought that tonight, and I appreciate that, and I look forward to getting to know you better. I unfortunately have a wedding already planned on Saturday, so I will not be there this year, but I look forward. I'm an active member in the Limerick sister city, and I look forward to getting to know you more. Thank you.
One quick comment.
You get the last word. Councilmember Waldorf gets the last word.
Oh, no, not Councilmember Kinnear? Okay. Well, I just wanted to say, for full disclosure, I don't have any Italian-American heritage that I know of, but I am married to, my husband has Italian heritage, and so my children have Italian heritage, and I look forward. He may even be, he got really interested when I started talking to him about this, about joining the club. He has great memories of going to the Sons of Italy Club with his grandfather years ago. And although I know the original circumstances, some of us may agree to disagree, I feel that it really allowed me to see to see the Italian-American culture here in Spokane in a whole new light. I really appreciate all the information and history, and I want to learn more. So I look forward to going on Saturday to the signing and hopefully attending some of your meetings. And thank you so much for being willing to come down tonight and share your stories.
Ready to vote? Passes unanimously.